Good morning everybody, it's robot vacuum cleaner time again, which means I've just got to pick up and clear the floor basically. It is the downside with robot vacuum cleaners. They really need a way to tidy up children's toys all on their own. Probably have to wait a few years before somebody comes up with that. And then, while we're getting on with the housekeeping chores, I've noticed that I've become a bit too hairy around this area. So I'm going to deal with that as well. There's just cars everywhere. So what I'm going to try and do today is a kind of challenge for myself, is shoot the entire vlog post without actually holding the camera while shooting at all. Using tripods and setting up cameras is kind of a bit time consuming, and so from a laziness point of view, what I tend to do is just go, hello, and you know, it's that classic I'm holding a camera vlogging thing, which is fine, but to help me consider what other kinds of shots I could get if I maybe gave it an extra 15 seconds to put the camera down, I'm going to try and sort of make that how I produce today's video. And then I can sort of see if I like it or not. And you know, I mean, obviously I'm going to be holding the camera at some point in probably the vast majority of the time in future videos. But by forcing myself not to today, I think it might open me up to the possibilities around, you know, some different kinds of shots. That's what I'm hoping. It's probably going to last about 10 seconds, but anyway. Right, time to go have a shave. So that's the beard done. Now I just need to sort out the hair on top. I'm not doing that myself. I know people say you can, but it just sounds like a big messy mess to me, so I'm going to go deal with that one in town. I was going to be talking today about having a slightly different perspective on things, which is essentially what we're doing with cameras on tripods versus holding them. And I was specifically going to talk about reporters and politicians and how they relate to electrification in cars. Or in fact, any kind of technology that is not necessarily something that they have direct experience of in terms of using it. I just want to say a quick happy birthday to Simon, because his girlfriend Catherine asked me to. I think I've got the day right. Yeah, bit of mental arithmetic. Yeah, we're good. Excellent. So, happy birthday. Have a good one. This is taking quite a lot of time, the whole setting things up all the time thing, so I need to speed things up a bit. Best way I know to get things moving. Yeah, picked a hell of a day to do something as time consuming as tripods. What? I'm not carrying the camera. I'm carrying a basket that's carrying a camera. Still on my diet. No distance is too short to use the board up. Time for me to go grab Jasper from school. Tell you what, love having cut hair. I always know when it's time to get my hair cut, because it's when I wake up in the morning and my hair's all and it doesn't just sort itself out. That's the best thing about short hair, it saves you time. So what's this whole perspective thing about then? Well, I've noticed that over the summer there have been quite a lot of articles on the BBC and various other news, but sort of more mainstream news sites about electric vehicles. It's principally driven, I suppose, by the fact that Model 3 is coming out, and you've got the Nissan Leaf, the new one of those, and also, of course, you've got VW, Audi, Porsche, BMW, Mercedes, France, Britain. They're all releasing positive indications of future EV plans one way or the other. Even Shell, I mean, it's crazy. So you've got all these journalists and they're all out there talking about EVs one way or the other. Now, most of them have probably had a ride in an EV, but the vast majority of them don't own an EV. And there's quite a big perspective difference between somebody who just has a bit of a go in an EV and somebody who actually genuinely knows what they're talking about. You see, the problem is, the things that you think are a problem are not necessarily a problem when you actually own an EV. Like, loads of people still go on about, oh, well, you know, it's going to be a pain, it's going to be a hassle. It isn't going to be a hassle 99% of the time for, I don't know, 50% of people. Admittedly, the people without off-street parking, they are going to have some additional day-to-day hassle. Good example, my wife, driving home from work yesterday, I gave her a ring, I said, when are you going to be back? And she said, oh, well, you know, I'm on the road. And I thought, oh, fantastic, 45 minutes then. Yeah, I've got to stop for petrol. And it's just a pain. Okay, so it only adds maybe 5-10 minutes, depending on how busy the petrol station is. But still, that's 5-10 minutes at a totally inconvenient point in the day when she's trying to get home so she can have dinner with me and Jasper. So it's kind of give and take, and not necessarily give and take the things that you would assume. Like, there's always, you know, loads of people going on about, oh, infrastructure, it's the big problem. I don't see the road trip infrastructure being a particular issue. I think the infrastructure in cities is an issue, but I don't think that councils and politicians actually know enough about EVs to come up with sensible solutions to those problems. Like quick chargers at supermarkets, they haven't really got to that point. They kind of go, oh, well, you know, put some slow charger bays in there somewhere, and, you know, it's best if petrol and diesel cars don't park there, but we don't really have any way of enforcing it if they do park there. It makes a bit of a mockery of the whole thing. With time, that lack of experience will evaporate as politicians buy EVs and journalists buy EVs or rent them, or, you know, have them for longer than an hour or two, you know, when they're just a passenger. So it's an interesting shift that's going on, and not just in the minds of the public, but also journalists and politicians. And you do get a quite similar perspective problem when non-experts are talking about any real given subject. Like, take drones, for example. To hear the BBC tell it, there's a massive problem with drones at the moment, and the more regulation is the answer, and put like little ID stickers on there and stuff. But what they're forgetting is that all of the close encounter airprox reports that I've heard between a drone and an aircraft, the aircraft is reported as flying at something like 2,000–3,000 feet. So if the owner of that drone was flying at anything even vaguely approaching the legal limit of 400 feet, then no chance of an airprox at all. The pilot in the airplane wouldn't even know the drone was there. Tightening up the existing regulations isn't going to work because people aren't following the existing regulations. What you need to do is find a way to improve the enforcement of those regulations. So there you go, that's another example of where there's a disconnect between what's reported in the media and the actual on-the-ground reality of these things. Right, time to go get Jasper. This just turned up in the post. Basically, It's a USB power cable to USB Type-C. Nothing extraordinary there. It's 1 meter long, so it's a little bit on the short side, if I'm being totally honest with you. You get a nice little light just saying that it's charging. That's nice. What you can also do is it's magnetic. How cool is that? Nice braided cable as well. I like braided cables. Well, I think on that note, we've probably reached the end of today's vlog post. I hope you enjoyed it and found it interesting. If you have, remember to like it, share it and subscribe if you haven't already, and follow me on Instagram if you don't already, and I'll see you tomorrow for the next installment of my daily vlog. Bye.